This is not what you were taught in church. 3 days of absolute darkness, when the sun vanishes from the sky and the earth freezes in terror. A prophecy the Catholic Church has tried to hide for 500 years. But the documents survived. The archives are opening, and what we found will change your understanding of biblical prophecy forever. If you believe the Bible tells the truth about the end times, give this video a like and subscribe to the channel, because what you will hear today will make you question everything. Saint Anna da Tagliaferro received these visions in the year 1530, inside the monastery of St. Dominic. She saw the sun extinguished in the middle of the day. She saw the moon turn red as blood. She saw demons rise to the surface of the earth and wander among humankind. The Inquisition banned her prophecies immediately after her death. The Vatican hid all the manuscripts in secret archives under the label "forbidden to be revealed." Why? Because this prophecy is not just a mystical vision. It is an exact description of what is happening right now in our world. Look at the skies above Ukraine. When Russian missiles cross the horizon and leave black trails of smoke. Look at the eclipses caused by smoke screens over Gaza, when phosphorus bombs turn day into night. Look at the red moon over the Middle East during the latest lunar eclipses. The signs are already here. They surround us. But most people remain blind to these warnings. The first part of the prophecy speaks of physical darkness. Not just clouds or eclipses, but a total absence of light upon the earth for 3 full days. Scientists say this is astronomically impossible, but they know nothing about technologies being developed in secret laboratories of the Pentagon and the Russian Ministry of Defense. They do not know about weapons able to block sunlight on a regional or even continental scale. The second part speaks of spiritual darkness. When people lose faith in God en masse, when churches turn into empty museums, when God's commandments are replaced with progressive ideologies and political correctness. This is already happening in Europe, where the majority no longer believe in Christ. This is already happening in America, where statues of Jesus are destroyed as symbols of white supremacy. The third part is the most terrifying. The prophecy describes in detail that during those 3 days the souls of the dead will return to the earth, not as invisible ghosts from horror movies, but as a visible, audible reality, witnessed even by non-believers. They will come to the doors of their former homes. They will speak with the voices of loved ones. But the prophecy strictly forbids opening the door to them. Father Antonio Gaspari, a Vatican archivist, discovered these manuscripts in the cellars of St. Peter's Basilica in the year 1992. He was cataloging ancient texts when he stumbled upon a sealed chest with the personal seal of Pope Innocent VIII. Inside were parchments containing Anna da Tagliaferro's prophecies, copied by the hand of Cardinal Torquemada himself. 1 week later, Father Antonio was found dead in his cell. The official cause, a heart attack, but his relatives told strange stories. During the last 3 days of his life, he refused to let anyone into his room. He kept repeating that there were too many people around, though guards swore he was entirely alone. Other monks heard him speaking with someone at night, but when they knocked on his door, he never answered. Can an ancient prophecy from 500 years ago truly predict modern weapons of war? Could the words of a medieval nun in a small Italian monastery describe with precision the events of a Third World War? Cardinal Alvaro del Portillo, personal secretary of St. Josemaria Escriva, had a copy of the complete text of the Third Secret of Fatima, still unreleased to the public. In his private notes, he wrote of a period of great trial for the Church and for all humanity. He spoke of a time when the skies would glow red from fire, and the earth would tremble with fear of what is to come. He died suddenly in 1994, while reading these very documents in his office. Today, humanity possesses technologies capable of altering weather on a planetary scale, weapons that can block sunlight across vast territories, artificial intelligence systems that can control the behavior of millions at once. All of this was foretold in ancient prophecies, down to the smallest detail. Russia is actively developing new generations of electronic warfare systems that can paralyze every device across entire nations. The United States and its allies are testing directed energy weapons that can trigger mass blackouts. China is constructing giant underground cities built for tens of millions of people. They are preparing for something enormous, something that will permanently and irreversibly transform our world. The one question is not whether those legendary 3 days of darkness will come. The question is, are you ready to face them? Do you know what to do when the sky suddenly turns black at midday, when every light and every machine on Earth shuts down at once? When cell service and the internet disappear forever? When the only source of light in your home will be the blessed candles from church? The prophet Joel wrote these words 800 years before the birth of Christ. The day of the Lord will come as darkness and gloom, as a cloud of shadows stretched over the mountains. Amos added even more terrifying detail. On that day, says the Lord God, I will cause the sun to set at midday, and I will cover the earth with darkness in the brightness of day. These are not poetic metaphors from ancient literature. They are precise prophecies of specific future events, events that have already begun to unfold before our very eyes. The Jewish historian Josephus, in his Antiquities of the Jews, described supernatural phenomena that occurred before the destruction of Jerusalem by the Roman legions. Eyewitnesses reported armies in the sky clashing with swords above the holy city. They heard voices echoing from the temple when no one was inside. Even Roman soldiers witnessed these events and documented them in their reports to Rome. Not one historian of that time was able to provide a rational explanation. Similar testimonies are being gathered right now by militaries across the world. Fighter pilots over the waters of the Black Sea regularly report strange lights that radar cannot detect. NASA satellites register anomalies in the atmosphere above active war zones. The American Space Agency has classified and withheld data about sudden shifts in solar activity recorded since the beginning of the full-scale war in Ukraine. Abbess Maria de Agreda, a mystic from a Spanish monastery, received a series of detailed visions in the 16th century. She saw great wars of the future that would engulf the whole world at once. She saw weapons capable of killing thousands of people in mere seconds. She saw skies above the cities glowing red from raging fires, and after all the wars and disasters, absolute darkness descended upon the earth. The first day of this darkness will be the most devastating for the human mind. Behind their doors, people will hear the familiar voices of dead relatives, friends, even children. These voices will beg to be let in, plead for help, tell stories of torment and the afterlife. But the prophecy carries a strict command. Under no circumstances must you open your door to anyone for all 3 days, even if it sounds like the voice of your closest loved one, because it will not be them. The second day will bring physical manifestations of supernatural power. Objects in homes will begin to move on their own. Mirrors will shatter from invisible blows. The air will drop to freezing temperatures, even in the middle of summer. No artificial light will work, not electric, not battery-powered, not even fire from matches or lighters. Only candles blessed in Catholic or Orthodox churches will give light. The third day promises to be the most terrifying event in human history. The prophecy warns that sinners will die of sheer terror when they see what has been hidden from human eyes since the creation of the world. Their hearts will stop not from disease, but because they cannot endure the sight of the true reality behind the visible world dot. Is it a coincidence that the wealthiest people of our planet are now building underground bunkers on a massive scale? Is it a coincidence that the global elite is buying remote lands in New Zealand, Patagonia, and Alaska? Clearly, they know something vital they are not telling the rest of us. Saint Padre Pio spoke about the coming 3 days of darkness in the 1950s. To his spiritual children, he advised preparing blessed candles, holy water, a crucifix, and food supplies for several days. He warned that this day would come suddenly, like a thief in the night, leaving no time to prepare. What is really happening in the classified laboratories of the Pentagon? What technologies are being tested in the ranges of Siberia and the deserts of Nevada? Why are today's space programs kept under even stricter secrecy than the development of nuclear weapons in the 1940s? A monk of Mount Athos, Father Varsinophai, described a vision he received during night prayer in the year 1980. He saw a colossal shadow slowly covering the entire globe. He saw people hiding in their homes in panic, yet ordinary walls could not protect them from what was coming. He saw the dead rising from their graves and walking among the living, searching for peace for their souls. This experience was so overwhelming that Father Varsinophai wrote down every detail in a personal journal, discovered only after his death in the year 2005. His notes matched the prophecies of other saints and mystics with precision down to the smallest detail. Sister Faustina, famous for her visions of divine mercy, also received prophecies of great suffering for humanity at the end of time. She saw 3 successive waves of punishment: first war, then famine, and finally plague and epidemics. After the third wave, a period of absolute darkness would descend upon the earth. But for those who preserved true faith in their hearts, it would not be punishment, it would be spiritual purification. The visionary Mirjana Saldo from Medjugorje claims she received 10 secrets about the future of humanity from the Virgin Mary. 9 of these secrets she has partially shared with priests. The 10th remains strictly hidden. Mirjana has said only this: when the 10th event takes place, humanity will finally believe in God's power and the reality of the supernatural world. But for many, this awakening will come too late. These testimonies have been accumulating across centuries. Different eras, different nations, different Christian traditions. Yet all of them describe the same thing: a short period of great darkness, a turning point in the history of humanity. In the 19th chapter of the book of Revelation, St. John the Apostle recorded a prophecy about the opening of the sixth seal. There was a great earthquake. The sun became black as sackcloth made of hair. The whole moon turned as blood, and the stars of the heavens fell to the earth. Most theologians interpret these words as symbolic metaphors. But what if they are not? What if this is a precise report from the future, written by a man who simply had no words to describe modern technology? Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, who later became Pope Benedict XVI, once had full access to the true text of the third secret of Fatima, not the shortened version released in the year 2000. After reading the complete document, he made only one statement: the modern world is not psychologically ready for this truth, and he categorically refused to reveal any further details. At Fatima, the Virgin Mary did indeed show the three children a terrifying vision of hell, with flames and demons. But that was only the first part of the vision. The second part spoke of a future world war that would wipe out most of humanity. And the third part described 3 days when the entire earth would resemble hell itself, and the boundary between the world of the living and the world of the dead would vanish. Sister Lucia Doss Santos lived 97 years under a strict vow of silence about the third secret. She spent the last 20 years of her life in complete isolation from the outside world. The only thing found in her private writings after her death was a single date, October 2012, written dozens of times. No commentary, no explanation. What was supposed to happen that October? Dr. Morris Rawlings, a well-known American cardiologist who studied near-death experiences for 30 years, made a shocking discovery. Patients who survived clinical death after December 2012 began to report identical visions. They saw the future of the earth in total darkness, lasting 3 days. They saw the sun fade away in the middle of the day. They saw armies of demonic beings roaming freely among humankind. The first symbol of the apocalyptic prophecy is the red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns. Modern biblical scholars believe this is not a mythological creature, but a geopolitical reality. The 7 heads represent the 7 most powerful nations of the modern world: China, Russia, the United States, Germany, France, the United Kingdom, and Japan. The 10 horns symbolize the 10 military alliances that control the planet, and the red color of the dragon unmistakably represents blood and unending wars. The second symbol is the woman clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars upon her head. Most Catholic theologians identify this as the Virgin Mary, but many Protestant scholars insist that it symbolizes America, the nation holding the torch of freedom, shining as a light for the world. The prophecy warns that the dragon will persecute this woman, forcing her to flee into the wilderness for 1,260 days. The third symbol is the most mysterious, the beast marked with the number 666. For 2,000 years, humanity has tried to decode who or what this might be. But modern interpreters argue it is not a single person, but a global system, a network of total digital control, already functioning, already knowing everything about every individual on the planet. Lieutenant Colonel Philip Corso, in his classified memoir, The Day After Roswell, described in detail America's contacts with extraterrestrial civilizations. He wrote of technologies that could not have been invented by earthly scientists. technologies capable of altering weather on a planetary scale, controlling the consciousness of entire populations, even blocking the sun's radiation over massive regions. Why are these memoirs still forbidden for publication in most of the world? When Moses descended from Mount Sinai, he carried 2 tablets engraved by the very finger of God. But the Torah also mentions other tablets, the ones Moses shattered in anger when he saw his people worshiping the golden calf. What was written on those broken tablets? Why do modern churches never speak of them? Rabbi Abraham Isaac Kook, the first chief rabbi of Israel, wrote in his private notes that the broken tablets contained prophecies of the end times, prophecies so terrifying that Moses chose to conceal them from his generation. But Rabbi Kook believed that our age has come and humanity has the right to know the truth. The Jewish Kabbalah holds texts about the end of the world that were guarded in absolute secrecy for centuries. Only the greatest rabbis and tzaddiks were permitted to study them. One such text, the Sefer Yetzirah, speaks of a period at the end of time when the heavens will become as hard as iron and the earth as copper, when the sun loses its power to shine and the stars fall from the sky like autumn leaves. And it says this period will last exactly 3 days. The ancient Indian Vedas, the oldest religious texts known to humankind, also contain prophecies about the end of the Kali Yuga, the age of darkness, lies, and moral collapse. They say that before the dawn of a new golden age, the entire world will pass through a time of total destruction and chaos. The skies will turn black as soot. The waters of rivers and oceans will turn to poison. The very air will grow so suffocating that it will be hard to breathe. And humanity will lose all sense of good and evil, truth and falsehood. Are these not the very times we are living in now? Are these not the very events unfolding before our eyes? Even the Quran contains detailed prophecies of Yawm ad-Din, the Day of Judgment. In the Surah Al-Qiyamah, the resurrection, it speaks of a time when the sun will rise in the west instead of the east. The moon will split in 2, the dead will rise from their graves, and the living will regret ever being born into this world. Muslim scholars affirm that many of these signs have already appeared in our age, pointing to the nearness of the end. Open any world map today and look at the locations of military conflicts. Russia is waging a full-scale war against Ukraine. Israel is facing a coalition of Arab nations led by Iran. China is preparing for an invasion of Taiwan and building up its military presence in the South China Sea. Iran is developing nuclear weapons and openly threatening to destroy the so-called Great Satan, the United States. North Korea is launching ballistic missiles and openly preparing for nuclear war, exactly as the ancient biblical prophecies foretold. The prophet Ezekiel, in the 38th chapter of his book, described in detail a coming war of Gog against the land of Israel. The great prince of the land of Magog, he wrote, will come from the north with many nations. Geographically, Russia lies directly north of Israel. In recent years, Vladimir Putin has formed a military alliance around Russia that includes Iran, China, North Korea, and Belarus, precisely the nations Ezekiel listed as Gog's allies. The 2nd chapter of the book of Daniel describes the last kingdom of earthly rulers as partly of iron and partly of clay, strong because of military might, yet fragile because of inner divisions. This is an exact description of today's global order. Nuclear superpowers bound together by economic treaties and international agreements, but in reality ready to destroy each other at any moment for geopolitical advantage. General Wesley Clark, former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO forces in Europe, revealed in his memoirs a secret Pentagon plan called the 7-Year Plan. According to this plan, 7 Middle Eastern nations were to be destroyed or destabilized within 15 years: Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, Lebanon, Somalia, Sudan, and Iran. Today, 6 of those nations have already endured civil wars or direct military intervention. Only Iran remains. What is striking is that every one of these countries is mentioned in biblical prophecies of the last days as enemies of Israel and allies of the forces of darkness. Can that truly be coincidence? Patriarch Kirill of Moscow has officially called the war in Ukraine an apocalyptic battle of the forces of good against the forces of absolute evil. Pope Francis has repeatedly declared that humanity is already living through a third world war, fought in fragments across the planet. And Israel's chief rabbi, David Lau, has publicly stated that, according to biblical prophecy, the Messiah must come before the end of this very year. The signs of prophecy concerning the return of the Jewish people to their homeland have been fulfilled with mathematical precision. The first signal, the rebirth of the state of Israel after 2,000 years of exile. It happened in the year 1948. The second signal, the restoration of Jerusalem as the united capital of the Jewish state. It happened in the year 1967, after the Six-Day War. The third signaled the preparations for the building of the third temple on the Temple Mount. Work on sacred vessels and temple instruments is already in progress. The fourth signal, the great war of all nations against Israel. Just look at today's headlines from the Middle East. The fifth signal, the sudden rise in natural disasters across the globe. Statistics of earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricanes, floods, and droughts show a sharp increase over the last 5 years. The sixth signal, the total moral collapse of humanity. The legalization of same-sex marriage, the ideology of gender transition, the denial of basic biological reality. Exactly as in the days of Sodom and Gomorrah before their destruction. Albert Pike, 33rd degree Grand Master of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, in a secret letter to the Italian revolutionary Giuseppe Mazzini, described in detail a plan of 3 world wars. The document is dated 1881. The prophecies of the first 2 world wars came true with shocking accuracy, and Pike wrote that the Third World War would begin with a conflict between the Islamic world and Judeo-Christian civilization. The result, the complete destruction of the existing order and the rise of a new world government. How could a Masonic leader of the 19th century foresee with such precision the geopolitical events of the 21st? The Wolfowitz Doctrine, adopted by the Pentagon in 1992, clearly states that the United States will never allow any nation to rise as an equal in military or economic power. China is rapidly approaching that line. Russia, under Vladimir Putin, is working to restore its status as a global superpower. A military confrontation between these forces is becoming inevitable. The question is no longer if there will be a third world war. The question is only when local conflicts will escalate into an open global confrontation using every form of weapon of mass destruction. And whether human civilization can survive the aftermath, according to declassified U.S. intelligence, Russia and China have already developed a joint strategy to oppose the Western world. The plan includes simultaneous cyber attacks on critical infrastructure, electromagnetic pulses to disable electronics, and the limited use of tactical nuclear weapons. The goal is not the total destruction of America and Europe, but their paralysis long enough to force a radical redistribution of global power. Meanwhile, Iran has accelerated its uranium enrichment program to weapons-grade levels. According to the International Atomic Energy Agency, Tehran could have a ready-to-use nuclear bomb within just a few months. Israel is openly preparing for a preemptive strike on Iranian nuclear facilities, an action that would ignite a full-scale regional war with unpredictable consequences. North Korea continues testing intercontinental ballistic missiles capable of reaching the continental United States. The latest tests show that North Korea now possesses hypersonic warheads that no existing missile defense system can intercept. Is humanity psychologically prepared for the chaos that is certain to come in the months ahead? Artificial intelligence already controls the global financial markets. Automated trading systems make decisions to buy and sell assets worth billions of dollars in microseconds, faster than the human brain can even process information. Machine learning algorithms decide what news you see in your feed, what products appear in your online store, and even which people you interact with on social media. You think you are making independent choices, but in reality your behavior is being guided by artificial intelligence. The book of Revelation, in its 13th chapter, speaks of the image of the beast that will be given breath so it can speak and compel humanity to worship it. In the first century that sounded like impossible fantasy. Today we call it artificial intelligence, and it already governs our lives. Elon Musk, one of the most influential technology leaders on the planet, warns that the danger of artificial intelligence to humanity is greater than the threat of nuclear war. Stephen Hawking, shortly before his death, declared that AI could be the final invention of human civilization. Bill Gates invests tens of billions of dollars into technologies meant to control artificial intelligence. Why are the smartest people on Earth so terrified of their own creations? Musk's company Neuralink is developing implanted chips to connect the human brain directly to the global computer network. The official goal is to treat paralysis and dementia, but the long-term ambition is the creation of a hybrid bio-digital human, permanently linked to global AI. Will the machine become part of the person? Or will the person become nothing more than a peripheral device of a vast machine? Biblical prophecy warns that in the last days, people will seek death, but will not find it. In a world of full digital integration, biological death could indeed become impossible. Human consciousness may be uploaded to cloud servers and stored forever. The body itself may be rebuilt endlessly by billions of nanorobots repairing every damage. Does that sound like a technological paradise? Or rather a digital hell with no way out? The first level of control over humanity is economic. Cash is disappearing from circulation worldwide. Central bank digital currencies allow every transaction of every individual to be tracked in real time. China is already testing its social credit system on 100 million citizens. A wrong post on social media, criticism of the government, contact with undesirable people, your bank accounts are instantly frozen. The second level is biological control. The COVID-19 pandemic showed how easily the freedom of billions could be restricted all at once. QR codes, digital vaccine passports, checkpoints based on medical data. The next logical step is microchips implanted under the skin, replacing passports and ID cards. The third level is psychological manipulation. Social media algorithms study your emotional reactions better than you do. They know exactly when you are sad, angry, lonely, or afraid. And they can deliberately steer those emotions through personalized content. The Defense Advanced Research Projects. Agency DARPA officially funds technologies to read human thoughts directly. This is not science fiction. These are real projects with multi-billion-dollar budgets. The stated goal: to predict and prevent crimes or terror attacks before they happen, just like in Steven Spielberg's film Minority Report. But this is no longer Hollywood fantasy. Palantir Technologies, founded by PayPal co-founder Peter Thiel, created a system that analyzes the behavior of millions for U.S. intelligence agencies. It predicts with striking accuracy who among your acquaintances is a potential terrorist, who may fall into depression or suicide, who is planning to change jobs or move abroad. It knows all this before you even realize your own intentions. Quantum computers, being developed by IBM, Google, and Chinese scientists, will be able to break any existing encryption in seconds. Privacy will vanish forever. Tech corporations will know absolutely everything about you, even things you have forgotten yourself, or hidden from those closest to you. Beyond this, technologies for real-time DNA editing are advancing rapidly. The CRISPR-Cas9 system can theoretically rewrite a human genetic code within minutes, officially for curing inherited diseases and cancer, unofficially for creating genetically modified super soldiers stripped of natural fear, compassion, or conscience. The Blue Brain Project, funded by the European Union, is working to create a precise digital copy of the human brain inside a supercomputer. If successful, it will make it technically possible to transfer human consciousness between biological bodies and digital environments. Biological death will no longer be final. But will such uploaded consciousness still be truly human? The military-industrial complex is now developing fully autonomous weapon systems, machines that identify and eliminate targets without a human operator. Killer robots are already being tested on secret ranges. The next step: mass production and deployment on real battlefields. Can humanity retain control over the technologies it has created? Or have these technologies already taken control of us? The total debt of all the countries on Earth today exceeds $350 trillion. That is almost 5 times the combined gross domestic product of the entire planet. From a mathematical point of view, repaying such sums is absolutely impossible, even in theory. The global financial system is doomed to total collapse. But the global elite do not intend to repay these debts in the traditional way. They plan to reset the entire system through a controlled catastrophe. Don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. because next we reveal the most terrible secrets of the global conspiracy. Klaus Schwab, founder and executive chair of the World Economic Forum in Davos, speaks openly about a great reset of civilization. In his manifesto, he stated the objective plainly. By the year 2030, ordinary people will own nothing and be happy. Private ownership of land, homes, cars, even clothing, will vanish forever. Everything will be rented from global corporations. Does that sound like communism? It is something far darker than communism. The Federal Reserve System of the United States, which de facto controls the global monetary system, literally prints dollars out of thin air with no gold backing. In just the last 3 years, the money supply of the U.S. dollar has grown by 60%. Hyperinflation is becoming inevitable. The middle class in every developed country will disappear completely. Only the ultra-rich owners and their digital slaves will remain. Silicon Valley technology giants, together with central banks around the world, are actively developing a new generation of digital currencies. These electronic monies will have built-in expiration dates. Fail to spend your wages within the allotted period, your balance will automatically burn and vanish from your account. The state will be able to freeze your money instantly for any political dissent or social behavior that displeases those in power. Didn't like a post on Facebook or Instagram? Your bank account is frozen, and you have no money even for your children's food. Participated in an unauthorized rally? The digital currency will prevent you from buying a train or bus ticket. Visited a church instead of an LGBT parade? You are removed from the healthcare system. The People's Republic of China is already testing the digital yuan on 150 million of its citizens. The system monitors every purchase, every movement, every conversation, every internet search in real time. A special algorithm constantly rates political loyalty to the Communist Party. A low social score means restrictions on everything from buying plane tickets to enrolling your children in school. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies were born as an alternative to the traditional banking system, a tool of financial freedom for ordinary people. But who really created Bitcoin? Satoshi Nakamoto is clearly a pseudonym. The true identity of the creator remains unknown. What if the entire cryptocurrency revolution was from the start a planned intelligence operation to shift the world to a fully digital economy? Do you seriously believe your Bitcoin transactions are anonymous and hidden? Every transaction is permanently written into a public blockchain. If state agencies decide, they can trace anyone back to the very first spent cent and reconstruct the entire chain of funds. The 3 largest investment funds on the planet, BlackRock, Vanguard Group, and State Street Global Advisors, together control assets worth more than $25 trillion. That is larger than the annual GDP of the United States and China combined. These 3 firms are simultaneously the largest shareholders in virtually every major corporation on earth, from Microsoft and Apple to Coca-Cola and McDonald's. Formally, there is market competition. In reality, it is one gigantic monopoly. Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, publicly speaks about the urgent need to optimize the world's population. His funds pour investments into companies developing biological weapons, genetically modified viruses, sterilizing vaccines, and fertility control technologies. Is that mere coincidence, or a carefully planned Depopulation Program. The World Health Organization, under the leadership of billionaire Tedros Adhanom, is actively drafting an international treaty on pandemic preparedness. Under the proposed treaty, WHO would gain the unilateral right to impose lockdowns, mandatory vaccinations, and quarantine regimes in any country without the consent of national governments. National sovereignty and democracy would disappear forever. Real power over humanity would pass to a small group of technocrats who were never elected by the people. Was the COVID-19 pandemic a random event that simply happened at the moment the global economy was about to collapse from over-indebtedness? Is it accidental that WHO is already warning of the next pandemic, one purportedly 10 times more deadly than the coronavirus? Elite clubs such as the Bilderberg Group, the Council on Foreign Relations, and the Trilateral Commission gather each year behind closed doors to decide the fate of billions of ordinary people. No journalist has access to these meetings. No minutes are published, yet their decisions radically reshape geopolitics, the economy, and the planet's demographics. Who gave these people the right to govern the destinies of nations? Who elected them as our rulers? Weather control technology is no longer science fiction. It is a highly classified military reality. The American program, HARP, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, has officially existed since 1993 under the cover of ionosphere research. True military capabilities of this system are directed control over weather phenomena, the artificial triggering of earthquakes and tsunamis, and the complete paralysis of an adversary's electronic systems across continental regions. The total transmitter power of HAARP is 3.5 megawatts. That energy can heat a specific patch of the ionosphere to temperatures comparable to the surface of the sun, provoking unpredictable changes in the planet's atmosphere. The consequences of such experiments can be utterly catastrophic. Was the powerful earthquake in Turkey in February 2023 really accidental, which occurred just days after President Erdogan refused to support Western sanctions against Russia? Or was it a demonstration of capabilities for politicians who refused to bow to the global elite? Directed energy laser weapons are already on combat duty with the navies of the United States and its allies. Aegis ship systems can intercept ballistic and cruise missiles at ranges beyond 200 kilometers. The next generation of space-based laser platforms will be able to destroy targets anywhere on Earth in a matter of seconds. Whoever controls space automatically controls the entire surface of the planet. The Russian Federation, within secret Rosatom programs, is developing weapons based on radically new physical principles, torsion generators, scalar waves, and devices designed to create localized gravitational anomalies. Official academic science still calls these technologies pseudoscience, but unofficial defense programs receive multi-billion-dollar state funding. Nikola Tesla, at the beginning of the 20th century, built a working prototype of what he called a death beam, a weapon capable of destroying an enemy aircraft at a distance of 300 kilometers. After the mysterious death of the great inventor, his scientific papers and personal notes were immediately confiscated by U.S. intelligence agencies. Where are those revolutionary technologies now? Who possesses them? The People's Republic of China is launching artificial satellites into low Earth orbit faster than any other nation, officially for global internet and navigation systems. In reality, each satellite can instantly become a space weapon. A simple change of trajectory is enough to turn it into a strike against strategic targets. Even ordinary space debris can become a lethal weapon in skilled hands. A metal bolt traveling at orbital speed 10 kilometers per second will easily penetrate the toughest armor and cause destruction equivalent to an artillery explosion. And tracing the source of such an attack is practically impossible. The war of the future will not be fought on the ground between tanks and infantry. It will be waged in space between autonomous systems controlled by artificial intelligence. Cyber weapons already constantly strike critical infrastructure worldwide. The computer viruses, Stuxnet, and Olympic Games deliberately destroyed Iranian centrifuges for uranium enrichment. The Black Energy Trojan took down power plants and substations in Ukraine, leaving millions of civilians without electricity. The next large-scale cyber attack on energy or financial systems could paralyze modern civilization within hours. Next generation. Biological weapons become ever more sophisticated and selective. Genetically modified viruses can be programmed to target only people with specific ethnic markers in their DNA. Sleeping pathogens can be designed to activate months or even years after infection at a remote command. Pathogens could be engineered to transmit not only through the air, but also via food, water, or touch. The secret laboratory in Wuhan was far from the only such facility. Similar classified biological sites operate in dozens of countries under the guise of peaceful scientific research. The next artificially created virus could be orders of magnitude deadlier than COVID-19 and far more selective. Directed energy weapons can cause cancers, heart attacks, strokes, and other natural causes of death at great distances from the emitter. No physical traces, no proof of deliberate murder, only a statistical rise in natural mortality among chosen targets. How many politicians, independent journalists, and whistleblowers die each year of sudden heart attacks and aggressive cancers? How many of those deaths are truly natural? Do you feel the atmosphere around us changing? Do you sense the approach of something immense and terrifying? The secret list once published on the website deageel.com contains shocking forecasts about the populations of major nations for the year 2025. According to these numbers, the population of the United States was predicted to fall from 330 million to just 100 million. Germany from 80 million down to 28 million. The United Kingdom from 67 million down to 15 million. Officially, these were explained as projections of economic migration and demographic change. Unofficially, they looked like a plan of mass depopulation in the Western world. Where are these hundreds of millions of people supposed to go in such a short time? Bill Gates, in his now famous TED Talk, spoke openly of the urgent need to reduce the global population by at least 1 billion people. In his words, only then could humanity stop global warming and sustain civilization's future. He personally invested tens of billions of dollars into family planning technologies for the developing world. For the last 20 years, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has funded mass sterilization programs across India, Africa, and Latin America. Officially, these were promoted as family planning and reproductive health. In reality, they amounted to systemic genocide of the poorest peoples of the planet disguised as humanitarian aid. The Georgia Guidestones, which mysteriously appeared in the state of Georgia in 1980, bore 10 commandments for a new world order. The very first commandment read, "Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature." That monument was mysteriously bombed and destroyed in July 2022. Who decided those commandments had to be erased, and why now? The Club of Rome, an elite global organization founded in 1968, declared in its program report, "The limits to growth that Earth simply cannot sustain more than 1 billion people without exhausting its resources." Meanwhile, the World Economic Forum, under Klaus Schwab, develops technologies for what it calls the humane optimization of global population. Modern eugenics returns under new scientific names, but the essence remains unchanged. Experimental mRNA vaccines against COVID-19 contain genetically modified instructions that alter the natural code of human DNA. The long-term consequences are still unknown, since the experiment is being conducted on the entire human race at once, without any control group. Have you heard of the sudden adult death syndrome that appeared after mass vaccination? Healthy young people, athletes, even children dying in their sleep without warning. Official statistics of such cases spiked precisely in countries with the highest vaccination rates. Is that coincidence? Or the logical outcome of a genetic experiment? Lab-grown synthetic meat, promoted by environmental groups as the food of the future, is not really about protecting nature. It contains artificial proteins and amino acids that the human body cannot fully absorb. Long-term consumption inevitably leads to organ dystrophy, infertility, and cancer. The push for insects as the main protein source for humans is no accident either. Chitin, the substance that forms insect shells, accumulates in the body, causing chronic inflammation, allergic reactions, and immune disorders. Genetically modified foods contain foreign genes that integrate into human DNA and are passed to descendants. After just a few generations, humanity may lose the ability to reproduce healthy offspring without medical intervention. The so-called smart city projects plan to concentrate populations inside limited zones under total digital surveillance. People will be forbidden to leave these urban reservations. Rural areas will remain accessible only to the chosen elite. Is this progress and environmental care, or the creation of giant concentration camps for the unnecessary? CRISPR gene editing technology already allows the design of enhanced humans with greater strength, intelligence, and disease resistance. But only the wealthiest will have access. A new caste of genetically engineered superhumans will look upon ordinary humans as an inferior biological species. The caste system returns, this time embedded in our DNA. Artificial intelligence systems are already deciding who has access to health care, education, jobs, and credit. Algorithms process genetic data, social ties, political views, consumer behavior. Based on this, humanity is divided into the useful and the disposable. What awaits those whom the system brands as excess? Projects of colonizing Mars and other planets are not meant for everyone. They are designed as backup survival plans for the global elite in case Earth collapses. Ordinary people will be left behind to perish on a ruined world. Is that why space tourism is suddenly so aggressively promoted? The wealthy are preparing their escape routes. We have reached the ultimate question. Everything you have heard today is not just history or theory. It is reality unfolding all around us. 3 days of absolute darkness could arrive tomorrow, or next month, or next year, but they are inevitably approaching. The question is not when it will happen. The question is, how will you face it? Will you be among those who hold on to faith and are ready for the trial? Or will you be among those who panic and beg for rescue when it is already too late? The ancient prophecies give clear instructions for survival. First, spiritual preparation, repentance, prayer, cleansing of the conscience. Without it, no stockpile will help. Second, physical preparation, blessed candles, holy water, food for a week, warm clothing. Third, psychological readiness, the understanding of what may happen and the strength of spirit to endure it. The most important rule: under no circumstances open your doors during all 3 days. Even if you hear the voices of your dearest loved ones, even if they beg for help, it will not be them. It will be the temptation that destroys your soul. But there is another scenario. What if these 3 days of darkness are not a natural catastrophe, but a carefully staged event? What if the global elite uses the prophecy as a cover to seize final control over humanity? Imagine, suddenly all electricity vanishes worldwide. Satellites shut down. The internet collapses. Cellular networks fall silent. In the skies appear holograms of demons and angels. Artificial intelligence generates the voices of the dead, broadcast through hidden speakers. People cower in their homes, praying for a miracle. And after 3 days, a savior appears, a new world leader who promises to restore order, but only in exchange for total obedience. Most will accept any terms just to bring life back to normal. Will you be able to tell the difference between a true prophecy and a high-tech deception? The third possibility is the most terrifying. What if both scenarios merge? What if the elite know of the true 3 days of darkness from ancient sources and plan to use that time for the physical elimination of the unnecessary? While people hide in their homes, special units could sweep through the cities, erasing entire populations. When the darkness lifts, only those loyal to the new power remain. The rest written off as casualties of a natural disaster. Which of these scenarios do you believe is most likely? Write in the comments what you feel. Are you ready for what is coming? Do you have a plan for when civilization collapses overnight? Perhaps you think this is all just conspiracy theories and fanaticism. Perhaps you trust that science and technology will save us from every disaster. But look around. Is the world really safer and more stable? Or is chaos and uncertainty growing each day? The most frightening truth of all is this: we may never know the answer until the very end. Perhaps the real 3 days of darkness are something else entirely, something beyond imagination, beyond our wildest hopes and our darkest nightmares. The only thing we can do is prepare spiritually, physically, search for truth in the flood of disinformation, hold on to humanity in a world losing its face, and remember, whatever happens, love is stronger than fear. and light always conquers darkness. But victory does not arrive on its own. It must be fought for. If you feel something was left unsaid in this investigation, write it in the comments. Share your thoughts, your fears, your hopes. Perhaps together we can find the answers to the greatest questions of our time. And remember, truth always finds a way through the darkness. Apologies for any errors in this text. The narration was generated with artificial intelligence. If you noticed inaccuracies in translation or delivery, please mention them in the comments. Your feedback will help improve the next episodes.